I'm going to talk about something which has really fascinated me over the last 3 years, which is that how can you build a brand without really advertising? Historically, people have thought that marketing is equal to advertising. The most convenient way of building a brand or setting up a business is to basically launch a product, do a lot of traditional ads, TV ads, and then assume that people will come and buy it. But is that the only way to build a brand is what I'm trying to question today. Let's start from beginning. In 80s, when I was a kid, probably many of you were not even born, this was the only way for us to consume media. This was Doordarshan. And then sometime in late 80s, early 90s, all of a sudden my world changed because I had a choice. I had two channels. I had DD and I had DD Metro. So I could switch. And with this DD Metro coming in, a lot of new soaps came in, like Zaban Sambhal Ke, Dekh Bhai Dekh, etc. And a lot of new brands started showing their TV ads. In fact, all the brands that I consumed during 90s when I was growing up were the brands that were introduced to me by these TV ads. Then I went to IIT. The big revolution for me in IIT was a new medium called as internet. All of a sudden, I could go back. I could basically go and I could access internet on something called as internet, a desktop. I used to go to my comp science lab. I used to go to Yahoo. I had an image of Yahoo over there. And all of a sudden, you could type something and results would come out. It was so fascinating, a new way of communication. And then till about 6-7 years back, I thought that is the only way for me to access internet. Like today, I'm responsible for Xiaomi's business in India, and we call ourselves as mobile internet company. But can you imagine till 2010, I didn't know that you could access the internet on a mobile phone. 2010, my wife gifted me this phone, which is N72. And that's when she taught me, my wife, that you could access internet on a smartphone. I said, wow, like this is phenomenal. Like, who has ever thought of something like this? That anywhere you're traveling, you are no longer hooked onto your laptop, you're no longer hooked onto your desktop, and you can access internet on the go. And that was one moment which basically, in a way, redefined my life. I started thinking, at that point of time, I used to work for McKinsey, and I started thinking, like, what am I doing? Like, world is changing, and I need to do something much more exciting in my life. And that's when we started Jabong. Jabong was basically a new way of selling products. Many of you would know, we were selling shoes, clothes, many other fashion products online. So we were basically trying to redefine the distribution network. We were saying, we will sell these products which are available offline, now online. We actually thought we would fail. Like, who would ever come and buy shoes online or clothes online? But eventually we were wrong. Like, a lot of people were coming and buying. So we could come up with a new kind of distribution, but our marketing was still very, very traditional. Like at Jabong, when we started with a lot of TV ads, print ads, outdoor hoarding. And we were spending just like any other company would spend, any other traditional companies in the 90s would spend. That's how we were building brand. And I used to think something is wrong, because when I used to compare Jabong with other internet companies from the West, companies that I knew about and I was proud of, like companies like Google, Facebook, etc. I thought these are the companies which have built internet businesses without any kind of TV ads. So what are we doing wrong? And at that point in time, I didn't have an answer. About 2.5, 3 years back, I exited Jabong, then I started Xiaomi's business in India. And when we were starting Xiaomi's business in India, most of the people said, you're going to fail. You're going to be a disaster. You will die in 3 months. The reason why, because we were selling phones online and only online, and we were not doing any TV ads. In fact, if you look at all the smartphone brands before that, they had built their business only on these two things, building a huge distribution network across 100,000 shops and building and doing a lot of traditional TV ads or print ads. And people said, you are not doing any of these two things, so you will definitely die. And today, we become the #1 brand in the online segment. We have become the #3 brand, online plus offline, in the urban India. And we have had a great success over the last 2 years. A lot of people still don't know us because we don't do any TV ads. But we have basically built a pretty solid business foundation over here. And that made me started thinking, what have we done differently? Like, and can we basically share it with others? And what have other similar companies across the world have done, which is how have they built brands without any advertising? I looked at the top 50 smartest companies in the world. This is MIT's list of last year. We are one of them, by the way. I shortlisted some of these companies which I thought were B2C, some of the companies that we can relate to, companies that we use or we have heard of. Like companies like Facebook, Snapchat, Uber, Apple, Google, Amazon, Tesla Motors. And I said, like, what are these companies doing? Are they really spending money on advertising? And the answer was no, none of them. Like, take an example of Facebook. Facebook has 1.7 billion people monthly coming on Facebook. Like 1/4 of the people in the world come and use Facebook every single month. Has Facebook ever done any kind of TV ads? No. Take another example from East, Alibaba, which is the biggest e-commerce company in China and biggest e-commerce company in the world. They have a Singles Day. Every 11th November, they celebrate a Singles Day. Last Singles Day, they did a revenue of $10 billion in less than a day. $10 billion. And without any TV ads. So what are these companies doing differently? Like, what are all these great companies across the world doing differently? And that's what I'm trying to answer. If you were to ask me, the number one thing that they do differently is they have a fundamentally great product. A great product. In fact, if you look at most of their founders, they're paranoid about one thing, which is product. In fact, they're pagal about this one thing, which is product. Most of the CEOs or founders of these companies are the biggest product managers who are very, very consciously, every single day, they just work on product. If you look at, if I divide these companies on two different axes, like marketing spend on one end and say product innovation. So there are companies like Google, Facebook, WeChat, Tesla, etc., who are companies who rank very high on product innovation and spend zero money on marketing. There are companies like Apple, who are great on innovation, also spend money on marketing. There are companies like our biggest Indian successful company, Flipkart, which has done innovation, also spends a lot more money on marketing. And there are a bunch of traditional companies which spend a lot of money on marketing and may or may not be doing a lot of product innovation. These are the companies that I've shown as blue color. Now, the point that I was making that most of these CEOs or founders are so paranoid. Like, take an example of Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg is only involved in product. That's what he does every single day. But he's hired a separate person to take care of the company, who is Sheryl Sandberg. And he says, let me focus on product. All other stuff like revenue, like marketing, like profitability, etc., is something that you should focus on so that I can focus on one single thing which matters, which is product. Take an example of Tesla. Not many of us know about Tesla here because it has not been launched. But Tesla is basically redefining the way world will travel. They've launched not only just electric cars, but they've launched cars which have an auto drive capability, which means you can sit in the car, you can tell the address, and it will drive on its own. You don't need to even park the car. It will go and park on its own. And this is something, a thought which we only thought was possible in sci-fi movies, which we thought will happen like 100 years from now. But it's beginning to happen now. And the person who is driving this, the person who is involved on this on a daily basis, is the CEO founder of the company himself, Elon Musk. He just worries about one thing, which is product. They just announced this Model 3 in the beginning of this year, and they said this product will be sold and will be made available next year, 2017 end. And still, within 2 days, they did a sale of $10 billion and with zero advertising. What do these companies, how do they build product? Obviously, most of these are innovative. They try to do something different. Take an example of Flipkart, the biggest startup in India. They came up with a very new innovative product, which was cash on delivery. I would give a huge amount of credit to Flipkart for starting the entire e-commerce revolution in India. They were not the first e-commerce company. There were companies like India Time Shopping, like Rediff, like many other, India Plaza, which existed 5 years before Flipkart started. But none of these companies were successful. When Flipkart started, they basically realized that most of the consumers in India, they do not have credit card or net banking. India is a cash economy. Most of the people still do their business on a daily basis in cash. So why do force consumers to come online and basically shop using a credit card or net banking when they don't even have this facility? So they came up with this concept of cash on delivery, and today about 2/3, depending upon which number you look at, but approximately 2/3 of the Indian e-commerce is driven by one single concept, which is cash on delivery. The entire e-commerce market exploded when Flipkart started with one single concept, cash on delivery. Look at Snapchat from West. Snapchat was not the first social media platform or not the first image sharing platform. But Snapchat, before Snapchat, there were a lot of other social media platforms or image sharing platforms. But there was an inherent need. Like if I were to send a picture to you, it will be stored on your phone or on your desktop, on your laptop, and you could have a permanent access to that image. Now, what if I want to send you a picture, but I just want you to see, but it shouldn't be stored on your phone or on your device. It could be some naughty picture that I'm sharing between my friends, could be something else, right? And they realized that there's a need for this and they innovated on this, saying, we will come up with a product which allows you to share picture without actually anybody else sharing this picture. And in 4 to 5 years, Snapchat is pretty early, I think 2011 or sometime when they started. In 4 to 5 years, they've basically become bigger than Twitter. And the amazing stat is 60% of young users in US in the age group of 15 to 35 actually use Snapchat very, very actively. So the point that I'm trying to make is all these companies, they had great product, great innovation, they understood what consumers want, and they accordingly came up with something which satisfied the needs of consumers. This is, a lot of you who are studying here would know this. This is Kotler's 4P, right? The reason why I brought it up was I don't think all these 4 Ps are relevant. And even if they are, if you were to ask me, there's one P which stands out, which is probably 5 times, 10 times, 100 times bigger than other 3 Ps, and that is product. Like if your product is fundamentally great, even if you don't do other 3 things, you can live with it. But if your product is shitty, even if you do great things with other 3 things, you cannot succeed. So product is important. What do many of these other companies also do apart from product, who have been successful in building brands without advertising? They basically build a PG, or they basically build a small group of users who are social influencers. Like the traditional way of working was a company will have a brand campaign, they will have a TV ad, and they will basically maybe hire a brand ambassador, say a Shah Rukh Khan or a Salman Khan or any big star, and they will do a TV ad which will reach out to millions of people, right? But in some of these new age companies, the way that they work is they don't have any TV campaign, they don't have a brand ambassador, but they have something called as brand influencers. They will go and work with a small number of people who genuinely believe in their product, who love these products, and become brand evangelists. These are the guys who will go to their social circle, their friends, their family members, their colleagues, and will talk about this brand. Like think about this. Today, most of the shopping or any other thing is a social need. Like if you decide to buy a phone, you will typically go to a friend or family member and ask, hey, which phone should I be buying? My budget is 10,000 bucks. I want to buy a car. My budget is 10 lakh rupees. Which car do you suggest? I want to buy a new watch. My budget is 10,000 bucks. Which watch should I buy? And these friends, colleagues, family members will basically recommend this. And this is much more true in smaller towns. See, a 50-year-old man living in Meerut would call up a son or a daughter or a nephew or a niece living in Delhi or Bangalore and ask, hey, which phone should I buy? And these are the brand influencers who can basically recommend the phone or that car or whatever that product is and say, this is what I use, I believe this is a great product and you should buy this. When a brand influencer basically recommends something, it is far more trustworthy than a big film star saying this. Because more often than not, you know that even if a film star is saying that I'm using this phone or drinking this cola, he's not even using it, right? So when your social circle basically says, then the amount of trust which is built is much higher. We do this a lot. Like we have fan clubs in every single city. And these fans, like when people ask me, how have we been able to build a great brand? A huge amount of credit goes to our fans who are there in every single city and who help us spread this message without any kind of TV ad, without any kind of print ad. So great product, great network. And again, I want to repeat and say advertising does not lead to success. I just want to give 2 last examples from Indian companies, which I hope will help establish this point that advertising is, if your product is shitty, You cannot build a brand only on the basis of advertising. Look at this e-commerce company. It was in news till about a few weeks back, Ask Me Bazaar. They had a website, nothing special about that website, nothing special about the assortment that they had, nothing special about the price, nothing special about the service, but they spent hundreds of crores, or whatever that amount was, I do not know, in their TV ads. They had some of the biggest brand ambassadors, Kangana Ranaut, Ranbir Kapoor, and few of the big stars, doing TV ad every single day about Ask Me Bazaar. And yet, this company was shut down. No great product, amazing advertising, doesn't work. Another very radical example from a brick and mortar industry, and I'm sure many of you will know this, is Patanjali. Look at Patanjali versus Dabur. Dabur was started 100 years back, or like 150 years back. Patanjali was started 10 years back. Today the revenue is similar, and Dabur spends 25% of their revenue in marketing, 25%. Patanjali also does a little bit, but nowhere close, almost negligible. And in 10 years, they've done what Dabur did in 150 years with zero advertising. So coming back, if I were to summarize, I would say traditional form of marketing, yes, it has some merits, but that's what I call as lazy marketing. Lazy way of building a brand. Just do TV ads and then hope that consumers will come and buy. The smarter and the harder way of working is basically by building great products. Brands and companies will eventually realize that consumers will understand that when I'm watching a TV ad and I'm buying a product, I'm not only paying for my TV ad, the TV ad that I'm watching, I'm also paying for thousands of other people who are watching this TV ad but not buying. It is not a good proposition for a brand. It is not a good proposition for the user. It's a lazy way of working. And I hope in future a lot more new B2C tech companies will not use this. Thank you.